Perhaps the most important thing we bring to another person is the silence in us. Not the sort of silence that is filled with an unspoken criticism or hard withdrawal. The sort of silence that is a place of refuge, of rest, of acceptance of someone as they are. We are all hungry for this other silence. It is hard to find. In its presence, we can remember something beyond the moment, a strength on which to build a life. Silence is a place of great power and healing. And that was said by Rachel Naomi Remen. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Egan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. There are many people in the world today who seem to be going through a period of change. I've been getting letters from people. I've been noticing things going on around me. I've been noticing a lot of people having some extreme emotional and spiritual challenges manifest for them at this particular period. And it seems to be going on everywhere. I've noticed that there seems to be a lot of, interference or static or something going on in the field. For me, it's almost seemed like time has been speeding up and slowing down, and sometimes it's even felt as if reality itself has the consistency of molasses or jello. I don't really know if you can understand what I mean by that statement, but it's almost as if reality itself feels thicker than normal. Energetically, physically, it just feels intangible. It feels sticky. I don't quite know how else to explain it. As I've said, I've seen a lot of people going through trials and tribulations in their lives. And folks, if you have old habits or you have old emotional traumas that you've buried, or you have stuff in your psyche that you haven't dealt with, you're going to find that these things are going to be resurfacing and manifesting at the moment. And what's happening is you are getting an opportunity to rid yourself of all of this old baggage that you may not have dealt with in the past. Everybody's getting opportunities to recognize this within themselves and to deal with all of this stuff, because you probably have more information now and you probably understand reality a little bit better now. And so if these things do manifest in your life, you are able to deal with them better, and that's why they're coming out, to give you the opportunity to do so. Because all of this stuff needs to be cleared, folks, as we are coming into this portal, if you will, this energetic change that's happening to the earth. All of this old stuff needs to be dealt with. And dealing with it will help you stand in your power, because this is essentially how humanity is waking up. We're waking up to the fact that, hang on, all of this has been fiction. All of this has been a dream. And we're starting to realize who and what we are. It's almost as if humanity is finally coming out of its adolescence and becoming an adult. And there's a lot of old stuff that hasn't been dealt with resurfacing. So if this is happening to you at the moment, and it would appear from a lot of the emails and messages that I'm getting from people that it is, then understand this is an opportunity to look at these situations from a different perspective and to see how you go at maintaining your energy through these trials and tribulations. And look, I'm not basing this on any type of religious teachings or any astrological readings or anything like that, folks. This is simply my perspective. This is simply what I'm reading in the field, and so that's the perspective that I offer you. But it really does seem to be ubiquitous throughout society at the moment. There seems to be a massive amount of change happening everywhere. Not all bad change. It isn't all stuff that hasn't been dealt with in the past. There are many people who have probably dealt with their stuff, who may be experiencing some very good changes in their lives, but it's definitely a period of change. The thing is that anything that needs to be cleared is resurfacing so it can be cleared, and in other ways everything is just sort of balancing out because things need to be in balance through the transitionary period. I think we'll see a lot of people searching for their soul partners and their soulmates and seeking the companionship that they've always wanted in this period as well. Humanity is starting to feel the bond that it holds with itself, inasmuch as people are starting to feel that they are connected to other people, and they are starting to seek out those that they feel closest to, those that they resonate with. And I don't even always think that this is a conscious choice that they make. I think that they just know they're searching for something, and then they find a person and they go, where did you come from? There's a lot of that sort of thing happening. We are naturally being drawn towards those people that we need to find. And even those of us that may be finding ourselves in solitude, perhaps the person that they need to know and the person they need to find and to connect with is the real self that lies within. You see, ultimately it's all opportunity, folks, and ultimately it's all of the experience that you need to gain the experience that is you. What's important in it is how you deal with these experiences. What's important is that you understand who and what you are, and you be yourself to your fullest potential. And it isn't about stuff. It isn't about acquisition. It isn't about social acquisition or acquisition of higher rungs on the corporate ladder. It isn't about the acquisition of possessions or friends or girlfriends or boyfriends. It's about knowing who you are. It's about the acquisition of experience in life and experience in yourself, and understanding the connection that you have to others, understanding how life can simply change. It's time for you to start knowing yourself, believing in yourself, and being honest with yourself. Self-honesty is one of the biggest things that seems to be lacking in our society, and it seems to be one of the things that we're trained to avoid at all costs. We often have a very distorted view of ourselves. We consider ourselves to be alike to whichever character in whichever book we're reading, or whichever character from whatever movie we happen to have watched, or perhaps some fictitious character from television. We project ourselves onto these people, and we have that particular image of ourselves. And then we get to a certain stage in life where we suddenly realize that we're not that person. We're actually ourselves, and we have all of the flaws and vulnerabilities that we were so quick to notice and point out and to criticize in others. We find that what we were seeing was those traits within ourselves. And because we had this distorted vision of ourselves based on whatever media we expose ourselves to, we fail to ever look at ourselves and see ourselves as truly human. We almost seem to have a larger-than-life view of ourselves when we put ourselves on the stage and stand ourselves up against other people. It's always us who knows what's going on. More than anybody else, we seem to know what's going on perfectly. And of course we do, because we are the only ones who can see the world from our perspective. The trick is to realize that this is how everybody else thinks as well, and that all of our perspectives are important, and that we are all beautiful and wonderful just the way we are. We don't need to project false images of ourselves into our own psyche. We need to see ourselves as others see us, and realize that we are part of the human family, part of the human organism. No separation, folks. There is no difference, really, between anybody. The only difference that we all hold is our perspective of reality, and that is exactly the way it should be. That's how the program gathers the information it needs in order for consciousness to evolve. One of the things that it is most difficult for the human mind to grasp during the evolution of consciousness that is occurring is the concept of freedom. As within everything that we have known of civilization, there has never been any true freedom. Well, not among the masses anyway. There may be some leaders that have experienced some degree of freedom, but there has never been any true freedom for the bulk of humanity. And look, I've been talking a lot about freedom lately, and I've been talking a lot about equity. And folks, equity is simply a word that can be used to hopefully convey some type of concept of freedom to people. But in reality, the true freedom even goes above equity. Equity, as I said, is simply a way of presenting the idea to people through their left brain, because that's where most people are. But true freedom is knowing that you are a sentient being answerable only to the Creator, whatever you perceive the Creator to be. There is nothing that can ever interfere with you being you. There's nothing that can take away the experience that is you. No one can do you better than you. And it's knowing that, and knowing that you do have something to say, that you are here for a purpose, and that you are just as important and just as worthy and just as unique as everybody else on the planet. That's what freedom is. And that seems to be something that we have a particularly hard time coming to terms with. The question people need to be asking themselves is, why would they perceive themselves to be anything but free? Why would they perceive themselves to be anything but beautiful? And it doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is what you are. What sort of person are you? Do you walk the path of the heart? Do you live to serve creation? Whatever your physical appearance is, well, that's what you need to experience. Whether it's beauty or whether it's obesity, it doesn't matter. What matters is what's inside. What matters is who you are. And why would people perceive themselves to be anything but beautiful? They're alive, and life itself is beautiful. Life is a wondrous thing, folks. It's amazing. I mean, especially when one considers the alternatives. And perhaps you have people in your lives who others perceive to be physically attractive, and they speak down to you because they perceive themselves to be more physically attractive than you are. Well, they only do that because ultimately they are in a great deal of insecurity, because they know that beauty fades, which it does as one gets older. You certainly cannot become dependent upon your looks, folks. There is no future in that. But of course, not all people are like that either. There are many people who are stunningly beautiful people who are very uncomfortable with their looks because of the undue attention that they receive due to their looks. And again, what we see here is human beings placing far too much value on physical appearance, far too much value on aesthetic pleasure, rather than valuing the essence of someone, the person that is within that shell, the frequency of expression that is that person, the emotional being that is that person, because they fail to realize that everything that that person experiences and everything that makes that person who they are comes from the same essence of that which makes you who you are. There is no difference. The only difference is the outward appearance and the personal perspective that each frequency has of reality. Now, really, when you look at insecurities you may have about yourself, insecurities you may have about the global situation, about your place in society, about your place on the social hierarchy, whatever, even your basic opinion of yourself. It's important to understand that all of these insecurities, without exception, are based in fear. It's always fear, folks. The only reason we would see ourselves as not being the beautiful, wonderful frequency of expression that we are is because of the fear we have that we are not all we perceive ourselves to be. And yet, if we perceive ourselves to be the beautiful, amazing expression of creation that we are, then how could we possibly be in fear of not being what we perceive ourselves to be? So you see, it's because people don't understand that that's what they are. And this is usually because what we perceive ourselves to be is based on the unrealistic expectations we have of ourselves, and these unrealistic expectations come from the societies that we live within. It's these societies themselves and the media and propaganda and mind control that people are subject to at the hands of these societies that give people these false expectations of themselves and then work very hard to put them in fear of never living up to these expectations and of never making the grade. You've got to be like this, and if you are like this, then you'll become famous. And we've been taught that being famous is what it's all about. If you're famous, then you have all this attention, you have all these cars and furs and friends all around you, you go to all the right parties, you wear all the right clothes, you get invited to all the right places. But all of these things are completely and utterly superficial, and they are absolutely illusionary. And of course they provide societies where no one can ever possibly achieve any of the goals that have been set for them by society, and so they get to watch other people who are manufactured and paraded in front of them so that we can see how they live. We can see how the elite live, and we can aspire to emulate them. But of course, we can never achieve those goals. And even what we see of the elite, it isn't real, folks. We only see what's paraded before us. Most of these people have miserable lives. Most famous people have lives full of turmoil, full of divorces, full of lost love, and they live life with a very, very slanted, disjointed and controlled view of reality. But all of it is fiction, folks. All of it is illusion. And it's all designed to keep you distracted from ever finding yourself. Because what actually matters is you. What matters is who you are within yourself. And our societies have been structured in such a way as to prevent you from ever finding your true self. So you see, all of this fear comes from our societies, and it comes from the expectations that people have of themselves within society. Their fear of everyday life, their fear of paying the bills, their fear of not being able to pay to be alive, and the state of hardship they will be in if they fail to pay the bills. And yet all the bills have been put there for them. The society has been created to keep people wading through an ocean of perpetual self-generating debt. And a lot of the fear that we also see comes from this debt. And see, that's why the debt system has been put in place, folks, because it's great for generating that energy in people. And it's great for keeping people in line, because people are always so caught up in chasing paper that they never have time to find themselves. They never have time to chase their own perfection. And again, folks, and I have to come back to this point, even though it's something that I've stressed so often, the truth of the matter is that all of these systems that are in place are all kept in place by our failure to face the fear within ourselves, because it is the fear, the shadow within ourselves, that keeps society so divided. And it is the division that allows the systems of control that we are subject to remain in place. And I know I'm probably harping on with this, folks, but I simply cannot stress how important it is to face the shadow within you and to break down that fear, to realize that you are free, and that if you stand free and allow others to be free and support them in being free and support your community and stand with your community, the whole world will change. Because it is people's failure to face this fear, to face this shadow within themselves, that provides the foundation stone for the fear-based reality in which humanity currently finds itself. You see, it's all about doing the inner work, folks. It's always been about doing the inner work. That's why I keep coming back to it, because there's just no way to avoid it. That's the root cause of the entire problem. And that's why things are getting as negative as they are, because people haven't been doing this inner work. So things will continue to get darker and darker and darker until people decide to face the shadow and thereby heal the shadow. The only way they're ever going to be able to do this is if they stand in their power. And I believe the best opportunity people have to do this is to understand what reality is. This is why I go on and keep on the same theme that I've been on for the last 3 years, folks, and I haven't really changed that much, because once you find what the answer is, you begin to realize that there only is that one answer, and so it seems pointless to be sidetracked and to go off down other rabbit holes. I mean, we can look at what's going on around the world, and we can notice the ritual, and we can notice all of this stuff, and notice how things are getting worse, notice where things are getting better. But ultimately, all we are doing when we point out all of these problems is we are pointing out various symptoms of the one problem that comes from the social system itself and the cause of this social system. And of course, the cause of the social system is our individual failure to do the inner work. So you see, there's no real point in addressing all of the symptoms the way we do and attempting to make change in the external world if we haven't first made the change we need to make in the internal world, because that is where the root cause of the problem originates. You see, we can look at big companies that do massive amounts of environmental damage, and we can point the finger at those companies, but ultimately it isn't the companies, it's the people within the companies who simply don't have the connection that they need to have with others. Because if they did, and if they were acting in service to the creation, they wouldn't be working in these companies. And we can see that the reason people do work in these companies is because of the attractive wages they can get by doing so. And of course, the only reason these wages seem attractive to them is because people within society are kept in a state of shortage, and so large wages can be a huge bonus. But of course, people are only kept in this state of shortage due to the monetary system that has been imposed upon society, and of course, the monetary system is only in place due to people's fear to stand up against the system. People have this fear of standing up against the system because they've never done the inner work. And that's why I keep coming back to it, folks. Even the people that work on whaling stations, they do so because of the attractive wages. The wages are attractive because society is kept in a state of shortage, and it all comes back to the same thing. You keep going around in these circles, but no matter what the problem is, if it's related to shortage, then it's related to the money supply. And if it's related to environmental damage, it's usually related to people's need to work that makes them take these jobs in the first place. And again, it comes back to the money supply. This comes back to the fact that our governments allow this money supply to stay in place, and that's because of the system itself. That's what the system requires. And again, this system is only in place because we perceive it to be real, because we haven't done the inner work and we don't feel free within ourselves. We don't feel free enough to support our neighbours and support our society. We're in fear of everybody around us, and so we don't do these things. And so eventually, folks, if you trace every single problem we have to its root cause, it all comes down to fear. And all this fear exists because of people's failure to do the inner work. And that's why I just keep coming back to it, because that's really what it's all about. And when we realise this, we're going to be able to make some very significant changes. But first we have to realize it. So that's something to think about anyway, folks. I think it's break time here, so I'll leave it there for now, and we'll go and have a break. Thank you very much for spending this time with me today, and I'll speak to you again in a few minutes. Thanks for listening. And welcome back, folks. So, seeing that the key to freeing ourselves from this system, the key to saving the world, the key to everything, ultimately comes down to humanity doing the inner work individually. As I've said before, we are the source of all evil that we've ever seen on this planet, and all of this evil stems directly from our failure to do this inner work. Seeing this and understanding the reality of it truly is the key to addressing this problem and to healing this wound within our psyche. As soon as we realize this, we are going to be able to make change, but we have to realize it. We have to be prepared to face who we are and to start treating people equally, start treating others as ourselves. I've said so very often that this is the key to it all, and it's got to start with you. It's got to be a personal thing. You don't necessarily have to shout fear at people and point out that 9/11 was staged or whatever. You don't need to point out the police state that's coming. All you have to do is to be the change you want to see in the world and to lead by example. Start building a strong connection to the people around you, to the people within your community. Perhaps explain to them why you're doing so. Explain to them that you believe all people are equal and that all people are beautiful, that all people deserve a chance, that many people are misunderstood, and that many people have a misconception of what reality is about because of what they've been subject to by our societies. And so you wish to help facilitate some sort of change and create a culture of giving within the people around you, within your local community. Explain to them that you've found that when you put yourself in a state of giving, the universe tends to look after you and everything seems to just work out fine. And explain to them that you've finally worked out that the way to improve your own life is to improve the lives of others. Simply because everything is always in balance and what goes around always tends to come around. And this may help people to understand why you are the way you are. When they start to ask you about things, you can explain a little bit to them, but give them half a glass. Give them a little bit of information, and that will inspire them to research for themselves, and then perhaps they'll come back to you and ask you for a little bit more. Perhaps they'll even come back to you and tell you stuff that you already know based on the little bit that you told them. And it's good if this happens, folks, because this is how real awakening occurs within people. It's when they discover it for themselves. And if you can be a beacon of light simply by being who and what you are, by knowing the power that you have, by living in a state of giving to others and leading by example, you can inspire others to emulate the light that you are projecting. And they too will become giving people. They too will start to research the things that you mention to them sometimes because they wish to know how you got to the state of giving and enlightenment and contentment that you're in. So you've got to lead by example. And that's the thing, folks, and that's something that I touched on last week's show, is that many people know that they should be the change. Many people know that the light they feel within should also be projected out into the world in which they live. They know that the best way to improve their own lives is to improve the lives of others, and yet they never change. They fail to live to their beliefs. But if you live to your beliefs, folks, if you really embody these understandings into your reality, you can literally change reality for yourself. And by changing your own personal reality, then you can also help change the reality of others. And more importantly, you can inspire others to do the same. There are a great many people who are speaking out against the system. But how many of them are being the change that they need to be in order to escape the system? If they are simply going to speak out against the system, but they don't have any alternative in place, and the only workable alternative is to have built community around them, then what are they going to do if their dreams come true and the system does fall down into a pile of rubble? All that will happen will be that there will be a power vacuum and one country will be taken over by another. And even if it were to happen on a global scale, then it would simply be a matter of one ruling elite will be replaced by another that will soon make their presence felt. You see, until people have done the inner work and have begun to realize that we are all created perfectly equal and understand the meaning of self-governance, begin to learn to use their higher faculties again and begin to communicate with reality around them again in the correct manner and view each other as beautiful, wonderful expressions of creation, then any alternate plan that we have is doomed to failure. And I know it's a big step, expecting humanity to gain this type of comprehension of each other and this type of communication with each other and with reality again in any foreseeable future. But it has to start somewhere, and the place for it to begin is grassroots. The place for it to begin is community. The place for it to begin is with you. Be the change, folks. Be the change you want to see. And in saying all of this, folks, I'm not saying that you need to stand by and allow a police state to be built around you. What I'm saying is that if you do this inner work and you do establish these bonds with the community around you, then the police state won't happen, because we will all stand in our power and we won't allow it to happen. Simple non-compliance, even those that work within the law enforcement agencies won't allow it to happen, because we will have a connection established with these people. As I've said before, if you really want to concentrate your efforts on something that is going to free society from the corporate shackles we are facing, then work to have the interest removed from money. Because most of the problems that we face on the planet, again, come back to people being in a state of shortage, and this shortage is perpetuated simply due to the interest that is placed on money. So address that problem, folks. Address that one, and that will free humanity from the mental shackles of a system of perpetual debt, and I'm sure that almost anything will be possible from that point. That is such an important thing, and it is, in my opinion, the main problem that we need to focus on as a society. And again, folks, the only way to really address this monetary system is to do the inner work, to face the fear within ourselves that prevents us from doing so. And of course, the best way to do it is to do it in mass, which means building community, which means we need to connect with our neighbours. And of course, the only thing that prevents us from doing that is, again, our failure to do the inner work and the illusion of division that we have in regard to ourselves and reality and people around us. So you see, folks, when you look at things from this perspective, it suddenly becomes clear why all of those sages and seers and teachers from times long past all said that in order to change the external world, you need to change the internal world. Many people have often looked at that and thought, well, what a ridiculous statement. How can me doing any work within actually change the world that I see outside of myself. But that's how it works, folks. It's just that no one has ever been prepared to be the change. People have an unrealistic perception of reality. People tend to only think of things from a very left-brain perspective. And that has been one of the biggest obstacles to people ever understanding the real truth that is contained in the philosophy of changing the inner world in order to change the outer world. Because when you really begin to understand things, then it becomes clear that it really is the only way that any change will ever come about. It's truly all about doing the inner work, folks. There have been so many people throughout history, so many great teachers. Even in the modern day, there are so many great teachers who have discussed the nature of fear to people, who've talked about doing the shadow work to people, and who have helped humankind truly comprehend the true nature of the reality in which we live. But unfortunately, many people go to these seminars, they read these books, they listen to the information that's offered to them, and when the seminar is over, or when the book is finished, or when the experience is done, they slip straight back into the matrix, and they fail to embody the information that has been made available to them. You see, so many people go to these workshops and seminars, and they believe that by doing so, they will simply be healed. They will be improved, and they will be healed. But they fail to take away the real message, and that is to embody the information that they receive. You see, it isn't enough to have the information, folks. You need to live the information. You need to apply the information to the experience that you're having. I mean, it's one thing to go and receive the information from a teacher or via a seminar or whatever. But if you don't apply it to the physical reality in which you live, then what's the point of having the information? If you just receive the information and you go, well, that's interesting, and then you file it and you catalogue it and you put it up in the dusty bookshelf of your memories of seminars you once had, then it didn't really do anything at all. And even going to the seminar would seem to be, on a practical level, virtually a pointless exercise. I mean, you may have had access to a good deal of very valuable information. You may have had access to some very workable and functional healing procedures, spiritually, psychically, whatever. But unless you apply them to your life, and unless you change your perspective of reality from that point on to incorporate those teachings within your reality, then what's the point? And ultimately, folks, the simplicity of following the one law of creation, which is service to the creation for the Creator, and the ability of the human race by following this one law to virtually change reality overnight, is simply staggering. It's staggering in its simplicity. And that seems to be why so many people can't see it. And yet following that one law provides everything reality needs to heal. It provides everything humanity needs to effect real and positive change. And it provides a solution to every single problem we have ever faced or will ever face. And I believe that people know this. I believe that everybody, if they really, truly look within themselves, they will see the truth in following this one law, and they will see the beautiful simplicity of the whole thing, and how everything would function in a state of balance if humanity was to simply follow this one law. And I guess that's why I keep coming back to it so much, folks. I guess that's why I've been doing these shows the way I have for so long, and that's why I have persevered in bringing this message to you every week. And I know I'm simply a small voice crying out amongst a sea of voices, but I live in the hope that more people will listen and will truly look within themselves to discover the beautiful simplicity of this information. But I suppose I should be careful not to get too nostalgic about it all. But look, I think people are waking up, folks. I'm seeing a massive amount of change in people's demeanour all around me. And like I said, a lot of people are going through particularly interesting periods of change in their life. There is change everywhere. Reality is doing some very, very strange things. As I've said, time seems to be speeding up and slowing down. You're going to find a lot of things that are going to come and land in your face, things that you may not have dealt with in the past, and they're going to make you aware of their continued existence in your life and within your psyche, and they're going to provide you with opportunities to fix these problems, or to at least face these problems and acknowledge these problems, and in doing so to face and to acknowledge things about yourself. And some of these things may be a little bit uncomfortable for you to face, but it is important that you do so, because it is by doing so that you will find balance. And we all very much need to re-establish this balance, folks, because it is this imbalance within us individually that is very greatly contributing to the imbalanced state of the reality in which we find ourselves. And that's probably stating the obvious, but perhaps it's too obvious for some people to see without it being pointed out to them. But just look out for these things in your life, especially in the next few months, and try to see them as the opportunities that they are. Try to understand that you need to face these situations, you need to face these imbalances, and the opportunity is to face them from the correct energetic state. The best way to do that is to understand what reality is, to understand that you are simply an expression of creation, and that everything that is happening to you is an opportunity for you to clear these things from your psyche, to clear these things from your frequency, to find that state of harmony that you have with all creation, the state of harmony that most of the human race appears to have lost. And it's the state of harmony that we've been kept from ever achieving by the simple structure of our societies, the simple structure of the artificial meme that enslaves the human consciousness. And it truly is a meme, folks. This whole social system, the whole legal hierarchical rubbish that we're all subject to, none of it's got anything to do with humanity. It's all just an idea. It's all just a meme. It's all just this fictional concept that prevents us from being who and what we are, and prevents us from ever connecting with each other and reconnecting with the earth on which we live. So it's very important that we become aware of this, and it's very important that we deal with it in the right way. And it will make a huge difference to the personal growth of the individual if they find balance and they address the problems that they are confronted with from a balanced perspective, and embrace these opportunities for personal growth that these problems are providing for them. So look, I'm not really sure what I've been trying to say to you on this program. Perhaps I've simply been commenting on some of the situations that I see around me, and commenting on some of the emails that I've received from people. But I think what I'm attempting to do is to help you see how easy it actually is to deal with change in your life. To help you see that most of the things we perceive to be uncomfortable about our existence, most of the changes that we get thrown into, are all necessary. They are all opportunities. And if we feel uncomfortable in these situations, it's usually because we have a misconception of reality. And we're going to find, especially through this period, that reality is going to throw lots of change our way. Very often these changes are opportunities for us to discover our own personal power and to stand in who and what we are. And very often they are simply changes that we need to have in order to discover ourselves. And that's okay, folks, because something that I have always understood through life, and something that I've said many times to many other people, is that one of the only things in life that is ever truly guaranteed to remain consistent is change. Life is constant change. And this is because without change, there can be no growth. So it's not the change that is the problem. It's our failure to recognize that change is the only thing in life that is consistent, and it's our failure to deal with that which is consistent and that which is inevitable, which is what change is. Everything changes, folks. Nothing is the same as what it once was. It all changes. That's just what life is about. Well, we're getting very close to the end of the show here, folks. Thank you very much for all the support that you've shown me. Thank you for continuing to listen to the show the way you do. Thank you for all of your emails. I am really banked up with emails at the moment, so I'm sorry for all of the emails that I haven't answered. Though I do read them all, folks, and I am very pleased to read them, and I'm very happy to read them. But unfortunately, I simply just don't get time to answer them all. I am still toying with the idea of having July off the radio in order to work on the film. I would like to get as much work as I can done on the film, but I've been extremely busy lately, and it's been very difficult to be able to put the amount of time I'd like to into it. But it is still coming, folks. It's just coming a little bit later than what I had hoped for. But that's just the way it is, folks, so I guess it will take as long as it takes. And that's just the way it goes. But like I said, I am toying with the idea of having July off simply to dedicate to working on it. So with everything that I've said on the show today, folks, I was simply attempting to help people become aware that reality really is shifting. We are in the process of some type of shift right now. As I said, reality itself seems to almost feel thick. It feels denser than what it normally is. So there's a very good chance you are going to be experiencing changes and old wounds resurfacing and connections being made, connections being lost, all sorts of stuff over this period. And it's extremely important that you are aware of what's going on and that you see it all as necessary change. You face the shadows that are presented to you and you handle the whole thing from the correct energetic state. And don't move into fear through any of it, folks. There's no point fearing anything because there truly is nothing to fear. And all one needs to do to truly comprehend the reality of that is to understand what reality is. But look, I think we're pretty well out of time for the day, folks. Again, thank you for all the support that you've shown to myself. Thank you for all the support that you've shown to the Crow House. Thank you for continuing to visit the website. Thank you for any help you can offer. It's always very much appreciated. Thank you for spreading the YouTube clips the way you have. Thank you for the promotion that you've given the website. Thank you for even taking the time to listen to the radio show. You have all been truly wonderful, and it's a great honour to have had my words received the way they have been. But that is it for me for the day, folks. So I will look forward to speaking to you again next week. Please take care until then. In Lakesh.